So in terms of being able to manipulate the envelope and the transients of a track, it's actually a really cool combination to be able to have, again, an attack control that can go very fast cleanly, but also being able to have this variable high pass filter on the side chain. You know, there's a few other units that have high pass filters on the side chain, and of course that's a trick you've been able to do for many years if you kind of jump through hoops and patched in EQs and things like that. But it's really cool to have so much variation and so much control right here, to be able to dial it in very specifically rather than just a random switch of here's the high pass filter on the side chain. Being able to go from completely off to everything below 250 hertz more or less being cut off from the side chain circuit is really, really cool. It allows you, again, to sculpt things in different ways, let kick drums and basses punch through, but also, as we mentioned earlier, really extreme compression settings for attack and release will induce distortion with sounds with a lot of low frequency content. So if we've got something that's got big bass going on or big deep kick drum, especially something like longer kick drums that you might find in hip hop or even jazz, if you want to do some faster attacks, whether we're talking about a 2-mix here or on the individual instruments, you can start to induce distortion if you want to do some extreme manipulation with them. And if you set up a high pass filter pretty high on the side chain, that real low frequency information isn't going to trigger the side chain, meaning that energy won't be pulling the bass down as quickly, won't be pulling the whole mix down as quickly, and it'll allow us to do compression of things like a kick drum or even a bass guitar or a low piano or a B3 in a cleaner, more musical way than if we just had a fixed setting on our side chain. Again, the other EQs that I've used that have had this feature, it's always just been fixed. You have it on or off, usually set somewhere around 70 or 80. But it's really cool to be able to have this much control because, as I said earlier, this is really a Swiss Army knife. It's sort of like when it comes to controlling dynamics, you know, if you imagine it, this box can do it. There's different ways to do it. Combining the attack, combining the releases, using the side chain filters, and also combining the two different controls here in terms of how the unit, how and when the unit reacts to compression. So we've got a rather simple control right here on the threshold. You know, anybody who's used an old LA2A can kind of get their head around the concept. You just start cranking that knob, and the more you crank that knob, the more gain reduction is going to come down. And that's what I find myself on this unit doing most of the time. Most of what I want to get out of this unit, usually that's going to do the trick, but there's certain times where it's not going to do the trick, where I want that, that style and that amount of gain reduction, but I don't want it all the time. So the hard threshold is actually pretty cool because I can dial in to get the effect I want, but if I want it to only come in on the more extreme peaks, I can use the hard threshold here to do that as well. So most of the time with the nail, I find that just this first threshold control covers most of the bases I need. It offers an incredible range of gain reduction with all these other, with just the attacks, the release, the sidechain filter. And most of the time, that's kind of enough. But there's certain situations where I want to be able to use the nail more like a limiter. Because it can do this fast gain reduction so quickly and so cleanly, one of the techniques I've found I really like is when I'm using one of my other compressors for its coloration, but I don't want to set the attacks too fast because I don't want to start eating up the transients of that lead vocal. I'll run that through that for coloration and big massive gain reduction if that's what I'm going for. But every once in a while those transients are going to just jump through. So this is actually a really cool way that I can set this up with a pretty extreme amount of compression, but then go in and set my threshold here pretty high. So only those loud things that actually peek through the other compressor are going to get brought down. And also, if it sounds better, I might swap those around. So on the first one, I'll have it set through that the real extreme peaks will get batted down with the nail, and then it's going to hit the other compressor to do its coloration. And it's a really powerful combination to combine these two very different styles in terms of their sonics, but also very different envelopes on two compressors, is a way to really get vocals to cut through rock and roll guitars or pop or anything like that. Or even I do it with a lot of singer-songwriter type records where you want to be able to maintain that close intimacy with the vocalist, but you don't want them, when they sing louder, to all of a sudden, or just one word, to actually jump too forward in a mix. So it's really good for being able to just smack things down, keep them in their place without really drawing attention to itself.